everybody. Today we have with us the very elusive Deepika Jindal. And I'm so happy that she has agreed to take our Peak Life Women Inspire Award. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for us. So, Deepika Jindal is the creative director and managing director of one of India's most prominent steel manufacturing brands, JSL Lifestyle Limited. She's a trailblazer, majorly into innovation and a very passionate person. She is the founder of Ardenox, a home lifestyle brand, and the Stainless. And I think Stainless is more her passion than anything else. Deepika has consciously brought fresh concepts to the industry, all while bringing in the light of the beauty of traditional Indian craftsmanship. So Deepika, tell us something about the Stainless. I know it's a great passion for you.
Thank you, Parinita, for such a warm welcome. And I must say, your perseverance has finally paid. Thank you for being and getting after me. Actually, the passion for stainless started when I got married to my husband Ratan, because he is into the stainless steel business, and as I started living with him, I started seeing stainless steel. In fact, my awareness of stainless steel began with that, because when you see metal, you don't see the difference between a normal steel and a stainless steel, or an aluminium, or a copper which is plated, so you just consider it as one kind of a metal. But stainless steel, the real value and the real beauty of stainless steel, I started understanding with my husband, because he, once you know the material, you start seeing where is it used, how is it used. And with the international travels, one would see the fine workmanship in stainless steel. One would get very inspired, and one would always have this question, why is this not happening in our own country? Why aren't we getting something so beautiful and so practical and yet stylish in India? And that's how this whole concept of the brand Ardenox really started, that why shouldn't somebody do something in stainless steel, make it a lifestyle brand, make it something very aspirational and yet design focused. And that's the reason why my husband sort of asked, he actually looked around to see if someone else could do this business, because actually had no training, really was a housewife, homemaker for so many years. So he asked me, why don't you try and do something interesting with this? And that's how that seed sort of began for this brand.
Yeah, because honestly, when you think steel, you think it's very boring. But you have brought so much of life into it. And like you said, you made it into a lifestyle brand. It's really amazing. And how many years has it been now since Ardenox started? I remember it from a long time now.
It's been about 18 years now. From the time I thought about it and I started experimenting on the brand, it's been 18 years now.
Wow. So tell me, how have you been managing during the lockdown? How has Ardenox managed, or have there been challenges during the lockdown for Ardenox and for you?
See, the challenge, you see, of course, the plant was shut during the time of lockdown, but you do have a bit of inventory lying with you. And then online was a great game changer here, because we have a presence online. So and with that, sort of kept the brand alive. And although that period of the 3.5-4 months of strict lockdown, there was that acceptability that things are not going to move and things. But people, I think that also helped, because people were actually, because they were home, and the fear factor was there, but not that large, because you felt protected in your home. So people, I'm sure, were on social media, and they were looking online, and they were sort of going into all. So this sort of helped you in the sense get business, and things were moving. It wasn't like a complete dead end or anything. So you were afloat, and Luckily, although later on our laborers did leave for a short duration, but because we keep them well, we pay them well, we were able to bring them back fast. We didn't have to struggle with getting them back to work. So touchwood, it wasn't a very bad time as such that one would say that you went into complete sheer fear, or like what's going to happen. So somehow we managed to stay afloat and carry on.
So did you all become more digital savvy during the lockdown, or were you always on the digital platforms?
See, it wasn't that we were digital savvy then, because at that time it was very difficult to even start if you hadn't started. But we had already started our online presence, and we had done a bit of work. It wasn't that we were very much into it, but we had done a bit of work on Insta and on Facebook, and also it wasn't that we weren't present. So you just you were present. Of course, now you feel it's going to be the future of any industry, so you need to spend a lot more. Although we always felt that stainless steel, one should see it more touch wise, but still you have to have your online presence very, very strong. So we are definitely working much more in how to make ourselves much more seen on top than we would have, which we had done earlier. So of course that change is there in the process. So online was already there. It was already there.
Okay, so that's about Ardenox. But tell me something about, I know your passion lies in that beautiful museum that you have, the stainless. Tell me something about that.
See, the gallery actually started the stainless gallery actually started for, because if you see the material stainless steel, it is a very versatile and a diverse material. It is a material not only for inside your home, but also for outside your home. So if you see for outdoor art pieces, for outdoor furniture, whether it's parks or anyway, stainless steel is one of the best mediums to use in the space outside your home because of its durability and all its properties. So I always used to feel that one has to give people exposure in using this material, artists and all, so they get used to a material, and they also get an idea, and they also get the ability to understand a new material which maybe they have never explored before. So the purpose of the stainless gallery was to sort of give opportunity to artists to use stainless steel and create creative pieces out of it. So basically it was more about education, working together, giving them the knowledge. You also learn when somebody comes in and creates something, you also learning. So it's like a learning journey. So the reason for the gallery was to really see that we create objects in stainless steel and we showcase it to the consumers, that how this material is so versatile and can be used in various different areas in your life.
So tell me, how do you think we can highlight Indian craftsmanship and artistry in the country? Because we have a plethora of good talent in the industry, but I don't think we actually use it to the maximum. How do you think we can highlight that?
See, there are domains in generally, if you see, there are domains in our country where craftsmanship is really excelled and has really grown. Like if you see fabrics, Indian textile has been one area where really the usage of Indian craft and with a lot of patronage also being there, and demand for clothes is always there. So that area I feel has at least got a lot of support and a lot of interest. But I think down happening, a lot of people have become very conscious of craft and homemade and handmade and Indian. So there is this slight there has been this slight change in the view and perception of, I won't say it wasn't there earlier, but there has been a lot more consciousness on this. So I feel that, of course, consumer awareness is very important, because anything you do craft based, you need to have the buyers to come and buy it, otherwise it never grows. And of course, right design collaborations, because a lot of these craftsmen are very talented, but they may not be able to give you the right product which you need for today's time and age. So
Correct.
if you're investing in any crafts person, you have to have relevant products, because everybody is interested in buying something different, nice and handcrafted, but then the product also has to be something they can take home and use or gift or whatever. So I think the combination of the right kind of products, so an industry or anybody who has the ability to market it, because you have to market something for the chain to really grow and to develop, because if you can't sell, then you can't give them back, then they will also not be interested. So that thing of industry, craft and relevant products is very important, that you create the products which make sense for the market at large, and you should have the right partnerships also.
Right, I agree on that, because without the bottom line, it doesn't work as you go along. So, what are your thoughts on sustainability in the steel industry? Because these days everybody is talking about being eco-conscious and all. Do you think there can be sustainability in the steel industry as well?
See, here we are number one for sustainability, because stainless steel is a completely eco-friendly material, and that's the biggest USP, because it's completely recyclable. It is very hygienic. It is something which is very, very, if you see, it is one material which can be used almost everywhere, and it can be reused, because the same material is used as scrap. If you see olden times, people, why would they buy and sell steel? And they would get money, and they would like बर्तन, पुराने बर्तन to a new बर्तन. क्यों लोग खरीदते थे और बेचते भी थे अपने पुराने बर्तन, पैसे मिलते थे, because they used to get this recyclable. They could give it away to the manufacturers, and that bartan wala would get money back for what he's giving. So this is a completely eco-friendly green material. So here there is, I don't even have to prove myself that this is a green material, because sometimes you're enforcing something which isn't a property of this material, but this material on its own is a green material. So there is nothing better than this in today's time, and it's a material which comes and goes back from where it begins. So it's like a full cycle. So,
yeah, that's actually true, because people are now moving from plastic, Melaware, all that. What was it? And moving even for the ghar ke bartan, people are moving back to steel, which was there earlier, but now people are moving back.
Because it is very hygienic. It's the only, if you see even operation theatres, all of their walls are made out of stainless steel, because there's nothing else. All your medical instruments, everything is made of SS. Even the spoons and forks you eat. I mean, if you can't, people, those who want to eat in silver is okay, but there's nothing more hygienic than stainless steel, because this is a material which is made for any, and it's like a no-brainer, because many times when you're using something, you always have a if and but. Is it safe? Is it not safe? If I eat in this utensil, or if I eat in this like plastic, am I creating, as it is, there's so much pollution around, in your, so what you're giving your children, what you're giving your family, are you adding to their health? This is something that is so healthy, because there's nothing that if you eat in a stainless steel dishes and stainless steel plates and thalis and all, that you're giving absolutely pure stuff to your family in terms of the material you're using. So you're very, you don't have to worry on that. I mean, there's so many other worries you carry. Here you have no worries to bother you.
Very true, very true. So Deepika, you were one of the forerunners in doing steel as a lifestyle product. But since then, over the years, there have been many other brands that have come in. So how are you handling the competition?
See, I feel that, always we are trying to innovate and invent and create more and more unique kind of finishes, products in what we do. And because of our back end knowledge of the material, because of the years of experience, I think we have got a certain amount of advantage on that. The knowledge and experience pays a lot. And I think with years of continuously, and because our core focus is stainless steel and we are not diverting into six other different kinds of materials, sometimes you're focusing on that and that, so your general knowledge of the material is very limited. But we've been always focusing on SS, so that's how our knowledge of the material has always been very good and very strong. So that's helped us sort of be a little above in the material. I mean, if you say apple to apple, I mean, of course, we are not really in competition with just stainless steel. We are in competition with all home lifestyle brands.
Correct.
Of course, we do stainless steel, but we are in competition. So it's also about consumer preference. What they would want and like it. So there also that factor plays a very big role.
So during the course of these 18 years, you must have faced many ups and downs in your professional work. How have you managed all the hurdles that you have come across? Everybody faces these problems, but how have you managed to stay above everything else?
See, firstly, I've always, I would say thank you, God, because I really believe in blessings, the divine blessings, because that's kept me going. Secondly, I think I always believed in what I did. I never had a doubt that what I'm doing is not right, or it's not something I should be doing. And these two were the strongest, I think, factors that kept me afloat. And thirdly, I feel that this business came to me of its own. It's not something that I'd asked for it. It was not like I was looking for it. It came to me on its own. So somewhere I felt that it was something that it was one of my purposes of life, and I stuck to that. I stuck to it, and I mean, of course, I got support also off and on, and different kinds of things happened, and a lot of things worked and didn't work, but it was to stay, and so it stayed. I can only say that in a journey, it has to stay. If it is for you, it remains. Otherwise, there have been many, as you said, many opportunities for this business to really shut its shop and for me to say, okay, goodbye, but it didn't close. So I just feel that a lot of blessings, a lot of self-belief in what I was doing, and divine grace. I think all these three together has kept this afloat and going on.
So, is there any challenging aspect of your job that people are just not aware of?
I would say market is a big challenge, because consumers are always having so much of variety of products, and because we are in a specific material, we are not like into multiple materials. There is this preference that plays a big role in what of consumers. So we really have to be very innovative, very very clued on, very smart in what we give, and different as well. Because if we are doing what everybody else is doing, then in the end you're like battling with, like if you're doing a ceramic or you're doing these very fancy bone china stuff and all, you cannot compete with it like in that way, because that's got its own beauty. This has got its own thing. So you have to be smart as to what you're offering, so that people don't feel why should I buy this now? I should go and buy something else. So you have to be very true to the core of what this material really is worth. It's not ki where you think money is there, just do it. Just because somebody else is doing something, I also have to do the same. No, but where you know that the material is essentially like good for the material to be used in. Like, as I said, utensils like dinnerwares and platters and thali, especially for Indian food and all.
Right.
It is a material which is justified for that purpose. Not like I'm doing it just for the sake of making something because I want to use stainless steel there. No. So even like kitchens that we are doing, full modular kitchens that we are doing under the brand for home.
Okay.
There's nothing better than stainless steel for an Indian house. And if you look at the kitchens, they don't look like stainless steel. They look like
Right.
any other state-of-the-art kitchens you get in wood or any other material. So it is justified for what you're using. So I always look at it that is this making business sense that I create a product? Does it work? Does it work or does it not work? So it's very important that the material. So I think somewhere the market is the biggest challenge because you have to be relevant to the consumer. In
Right.
the end, of course, your whole package, your pricing, your products, and the advantages that we design and manufacture our own. It's not something that we copy or we take what others are doing and make it and put it in the market. So that's also a bit of a thing because you have to create. So what you create has to be relevant. It's
Very
not like
true.
bulk buying you're doing and you're just trading in it. So market relevance and for me, the consumer is the biggest challenge. Yeah.
So you're doing turnkey projects for kitchens as well.
We do. We design. We manufacture. We design. Actually, somebody gives us an order. We go. We design their kitchen. We show them everything, and then we execute. So we do.
Is that something new that you've started, or was it there for some time?
It's been about 5-6 years now.
Okay.
Since the time we started, but we've been a little slow in putting ourselves really out there in knowledge of consumers, which we are now trying to do. But that's a business which we really feel we need to invest a lot more because it's a better I would say better business for any company because it's longevity, it's ticket size, everything is much more relevant than products are very seasonal. This is like there's no season.
No, but I think it's a very good idea because, like you said, it's sustainable. And the products, if hospitals can use sustainable steel everywhere, then the kitchen is a very important aspect of our life. I mean, food is so important.
Yeah, durability, usability, the like wet kitchens, wherever Indian homes are, you need a kitchen which is very functional, very practical, easy, rust-free, termite-free. There's a lot of advantages in a stainless steel kitchen than a normal other material kitchen. So
I think you guys should really promote that. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So tell me personally, what keeps you on your toes? I mean, how do you manage your work-life balance?
See, of course, I do have a team which helps me work. I mean, there is a team working with me. It's not I'm doing it alone. So there is, of course, the support system of your team, which helps you do what you do. The design part is where I put a lot of my energies in it, and which is really stimulating and exciting because creation is always very interesting and exciting. And and of course now with today's Zoom and all, it's become, I mean, at one time I would always struggle when I used to be traveling. How do I do my business? And I was never so computer savvy and all this Zoom savvy, and also I used to always feel this tussle between this being away and missing out on that time. But now with the Zooms and all, you can be discussing, you can talk and discuss, so you don't feel you're out of this the business. So travel space has become very easy now. You can do anything anytime. So I think you manage, and it's not like because of you have a professional team, it's not like 24/7 you're just running around doing everything. So it's, and of course people have also learned, they know, and so you can balance, you can do your work as well as you can do other things you're interested in doing, which is my spiritual side, which I love.
I was coming that next. Yeah. I know you are very much into spirituality. Tell me something about that if you'd like to share.
Well, I have my spiritual life with my work life has also been a transition. I have tried many different. I've been always a soul searcher. I've always been trying to see how I can be a better person and a better human being. My search was more within than outside. I was not really a devout bhakt like kind of person that I was praying for hours, but it was a very internal journey. And I did a lot of different things, like you name it, Reiki. Initially, you start with all these Reiki and pranic healing and inner engineering and art of living and a landmark. And I mean, I must have tried. And then I started the Gita also in understanding the Bhagavad Gita. Then I did Buddhist chanting. But I think, which I would say in the last 5 months, I found my destination, which may be a little different to what people may not be so aware, is the Brahma Kumari practice of Raj Yoga meditation. And
yes.
I really identify myself. I feel that my destination has come. I have reached my destination of my journey of my spiritual life and growth. And it's been 6 months I've been practicing this practice, and I'm really, I mean, it's a very important part of my life at the moment. And so I would say these are my two important parts of my life, my spiritual practice of this. So, I balance these two, and I feel, I mean, I'm one of those persons who's not been always much out there and interested in the outside things. So I'm very happy with, I mean, of course I have my responsibilities of family life, which I also have to balance, which I do, but now I know where I need to be. I mean, now I don't have this fear of saying, oh, I'm not coming or I'm not doing this, because I'm here what I want to be doing with myself. So, I take that call with anybody. When I say I'm not, I don't feel I'm sort of disrespecting anybody, but, in India, we have a lot of social commitments and a lot of things and places we need to go for and do. So I just politely tell them that, I'll come for one day. If there's a wedding outside India, outside Delhi, I'll just say I'll come for one, and people understand. They're also not that insistent, because you say that you're doing this practice and there are certain norms you have to follow in this practice. And I feel that if I can tell them, I don't have a problem telling them that I'm doing this, and if they're accepting it, and it's helped. I have a few weddings I have to attend in the near future, and I've told all of them that I cannot attend everything, every function and everything, but yes, it's close family or friend, I'll attend one and I'll be there for one event. So I'm finding because this practice is different, it's new, so there is a lot of my own personal growth attached to it. It's a process now. You begin from somewhere and you have an aim to reach somewhere. So that also is a journey which is now unfolding itself.
That's fabulous. And when you say this, it makes me feel even more honored that you are going to be with us at the awards. Thank you.
Thank you. That's why there was one big question which came, because here they say that for you, it's not you that is claiming the thing. It is because these are all because of whatever reason. So sometimes you feel it's not for the name that you're claiming the award. You're not there to, and I've never been there to want my name. I've never done it.
I know you are actually shy, and
it's always at the back of my mind. Is it do I deserve this, or do I really need to get this done? I mean, do I really need this?
That's what makes you. That's
and I
what makes you so beautiful.
no, thank you so much, and I really appreciate that you were really, you know, you really valued me, and you went after me every time you would ask me, and I would say no, and I used to feel, and then I mean, hats off to you to be, to even give someone so much of importance and so much honor, because sometimes people think doesn't matter, there's so many people out there who can get an award by me.
I value the relationship we've had for the past 15 years, and I think you've done amazing work. And it's just not, it's not just about the business aspect, it's about you as a person, which is more important. So I always feel,
and I can say the same for you, because
thank you.
Really, wherever you, I mean, from where you started and where you've taken your work with so much dedication, and your awards, and the prestige that awards have shows that how much they value you, because an award that somebody gives, nobody would want to go and receive it if they don't value the award. So it shows that everything in the industry is so good because of your work. So there's a mutual this thing from my side as well, that you have done wonders as well in your space, and advertising and media is
now, so it is the toughest thing to be in, but we are fine. It's okay. We are happy.
No, when you believe and you know what you're doing is true, nobody can take it away from you. As you very rightly said, challenges come and go, but if you have faith and you have belief in what you do, it stays. It stays for its own purpose. Thank you so much.
Tell me, what is the success mantra that you live by? What do you think makes a person successful?
I feel that your core belief and your core, the reason for why you do this, because there is a purpose for which you do. What is your main purpose of doing this? Is it your own selfish interest, or is it for a larger interest? Oh, sorry, my dog. So I feel that the purpose really is the biggest reason for any business to stay and be there, because that is what it is. Is it for a reason? What is the reason? And if the reason is really right, then I don't think there is anything to worry or think about.
So what is your leadership style? What is the kind of, how do you think, do you think female leaders face different challenges from the men?
Yeah, I think, firstly, a challenge, I mean, is just the way of how they walk and how they think. More about the thinking part, because, we have our emotional skills that we really play very strongly with, while they have this very black and white kind of approach. And I think somewhere we women have a trusting, a deeper sense of trust in us, which men don't have that. I mean, men don't trust. Maybe it's a little bit of a minus. It could be a plus. It could be a minus as well. So you have to be very aware of that point. And I also feel that if we listen to our gut, women have a very strong gut sense, but we don't listen to it sometimes, because especially when you are unsure about yourself, we tend to not use it, because we are looking at others for validation or for this thing. But if you actually, I've experienced it that a lot of times when my gut has been telling me something and I've not listened to it, I've just followed blindly what others have told me, it's not worked for me. So I think there are these aspects that, because we work through our heart, we work with a lot more senses than men do, So somewhere I think that is a big advantage and also a disadvantage. So men don't understand that language. When you speak, a lot of times they don't understand what you're trying to communicate to them. So They may be, but I think, if you are the boss of your company, there are times they have to listen to you. They don't have a choice.
They have no choice.
Yeah, they don't have a choice, but maybe they agree or disagree, I don't know, but they don't have a choice. So I feel that we are very soft in some areas. At least I am very soft in some areas, and I look at it in a very different way, while maybe my people would look at it in a more hardcore, strong way of doing certain things. So I feel that the way you look at things may differ. Of course, I would say, because I was not a full-bred businesswoman, like I wasn't trained to be a businesswoman, I definitely had lack of knowledge in a lot of areas which I felt I didn't have that business sense, or those. So there I would feel that I could be taken, I mean, people, what they told me, I believed in, and I followed, I didn't have that knowledge at that time. So I feel
over a period of time that has changed, I'm sure.
Over a period of time, definitely you have become much more, I think I've got a more that inner, I mean, I'm able to see things in my sense, which I may bring out in a way they are seeing it rightly, but I feel when what I say, they see it from a different angle. So they see it in their way, I tell it in another way. Then when they see the whole thing, they are able to understand it in a more, because I work the way I used to. And I don't look at it myself as that industry woman who is sitting on my chair and trying to run a company like a 9 to 5 kind of a person. I just can't be that person. So, for me, I still have my own ways of doing things and looking at things for all these years. So somewhere, I look at it in my way and they have their way. So it's somehow sort of they're able to see the whole thing.
That's good. So one last thing, give us some advice for budding entrepreneurs. What would be your piece of advice for young budding entrepreneurs?
See, for me, it is, as when I mentioned, was believe in what you do. Because if you really believe in what you do, that keeps you going. Secondly, now with so much of startups coming up, do your homework well before you begin. Don't spread yourself too fast. I mean, of course, take opportunities. Don't lose opportunities, but don't be too much in a rush to do everything all together, because it's better to do it gradually. And fourthly, I would say is that good teamwork, good team, because try and sort of hire people where your skills are less. You that kind of people. And fifth is, I would say, is that of course finance comes under proper business plans you should have, so that you can invest and don't get disheartened just because you had a setback. So watch yourself, believe in yourself, and I feel that also be ready for change, because if you see, you've also seen the way businesses were done earlier was so like standard. Everything was like ye chal raha hai, aise hi chal raha hai. But with now the times, you don't know where you have to change immediately, because you never know how the market will just change. And then if you really want to be present in that market, you'll have to be able to adapt and change yourself equally fast, so that you're there and you're not sort of left behind. So adaptability is very important. Thank you. And see you on 28. Look forward.
See you.